Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Monday evening uh, to an Imperfect Union, brought to you by West Coast Steeler Fan, the political consciousness of. Um, let's get all the commercials out of the way. If you like what you hear, you can go to Cash App. You'll see my Cash App signature there. $ JE King 3. Donate. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. I usually don't make this a very commercial program, but if you would like to subscribe, you like what you hear, please go to Cash App. Uh, every little bit helps. And if you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you have a topic that you would like to discuss, you can email me or Facebook me. If you follow me on Facebook, JE King 3, or To an Imperfect Union. We have various pages on Facebook. Just feel free to leave me a message, and I will definitely get back to you. Always good to have more content and more opinions on the show. I'm going to do a special show this Wednesday. And the reason why I'm doing this show uh, is because I want to bring, or one of my favorite words, I want to use some inclusion here because it seems that in the last few months, especially on this Monday show, we have dominated the airwaves with black issues, uh, as well as issues for the black community, and so forth. So I want to kind of get back a little bit to um, the beginning or the roots. I'm going to have a much more diverse audience and participation. Uh, a lot of these are members of that have been on the show before, and but I want to bring on to back to the political consciousness of West Coast Steel Fan. And Mr. Warmbolt will be with us. As you know, he's a teacher in a very kind of unusual district in the state of Pennsylvania. We're going to have him back. We're going to have Miss Natalie Croy, Miss Natalie Flute back also. The mother of uh, a two interracial daughters, as well as a son. Uh, two of whom I know are very deeply embedded in political discourse in different ways. And I'm going to bring a couple of Vietnam veterans back on. Um, and we're going to talk about separation of church and state. Um, We're also going to talk about the division and separation within our nation, and how big or how huge is this divide? Um, hmm, let's see. Where is? Let's grab a. Let's grab. Uh, I know. I know Bill's gonna be late. He's doing some fantasy football things, but let's see. Uh, okay. Um, going to. Okay. Okay. Couple of quick messages there. But anyway, as I was saying, this show will be on the 17th, Wednesday, same time, 6 o'clock. Uh, Mr. Holman will be there. Mr. Tchaikovsky will be there. I invited um, Mr. Scott uh, as as well as I said, some other people that have been on the show before, just to kind of get an insight on the differences between what we want to accomplish in the midterms within the Black community and the ideals of the white middle class um, opinion of what we need to accomplish in uh, our upcoming midterms and how they come together, how they are parallel, and how they completely go off into different tangents. So, it should be very interesting to see the differences in the objectives of uh, the Black and Brown communities as opposed to, uh, shall we call it, the moral majority, or has it become the immoral majority? But anyway, those are some of the things that I wanted to talk about Wednesday, and I don't want people to think that this is a that we don't care about the opinions of others, but we certainly, you know, we, many times we've talked about allies and about how we have to form these coalitions in order for us to achieve certain objectives within the political organizations and the political structure itself. Um, and using history as an example, and I don't know how far you'd like to go back. We can go back to the French and Indian Wars. What happened to the Iroquois and the Indian tribes that supported the French? Um, we can go down to excuse me, the many Indian wars, the Cree Indian wars. We all know about the Trail of Tears and so forth. But it seems that when we join these coalitions, a strange thing happens. And I'll use the Black Widow spider as an example. Because most of these organizations or coalitions that we find ourselves aligning with become like the female black widow spider. Once we have procreated or done our job within this union, oh man, we just finishing up on the grill. Always see, she always got to put some stuff in the game. Dr. Casey there, okay. Anyway, that's all right. I'll be talking about her in a minute. So, anyway, as I was saying, it seems that these coalitions, once we have fulfilled, uh, you know, um, our obligation or gotten out, uh, gotten the most out of our alignment or our resources or whatever it may be, whether it means that you know uh, we brought you, uh, you can give me a ride to the party, but you can't go in. So these other organizations become like the female black widow spider, and you get eaten up. As a matter of fact, you become a forgotten part of the progress. You know, it's like you never existed, except for the fact that now we have all these other little spiders running around. And once again, we cannibalize and use the weak and the infirmed in order for the strongest to survive. And I'll give you what I consider a very good example, but it may not be politically correct um, in today's configuration of social justice, social media, and so forth. But I'll use uh, the LGBTQI, excuse me, community as an example. Is anyone in our audience old enough to remember the original hate crime legislation and what its purposes were? It was directed at injustices and crimes such as Emmett Till and others within the black community. Excuse me. Primarily within the black community. Um, I believe there was some anti-Semitic uh, legislation also woven into the original. But hate crimes were something that was a novelty. In other words, you could lynch a man, but it wasn't a hate crime. Let me say it again. You could lynch a man, but it wasn't a hate crime. Uh, it took a federal legislation to make hate crimes, to put hate crimes on the books. And the reason why I'm going back, I'm using this is because now, we have also used this to include LGBTQ crimes, crimes against Asians, crimes against uh, um, uh, various uh, minorities and uh, not only racial minorities but minority groups. We have we have moved quicker and I would say in most cases use the hate crime statute more against sexual well let me let this back up here. Not sexual in the sense of pedophiles or rapists or things like that, but I believe if you look back, there have been more hate crimes against sexual groups than there have been against black and brown groups. Now, with the words of Mr. Clarence Scott, we do seem to be going backwards uh, in our intellectual thinking. Um, and some old school and Bible thumpers and so forth, are wanting to revisit these uh, particular uh, statutes like same-sex marriage and so forth, uh, just as we have revisited uh, Roe versus Wade. So we now have pushed the John Lewis agendas and the economic disparity between our neighborhoods on the back burner because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We have now seen that as the new rallying cry of the Democrats. If we can get the women on our side, we could do pretty much the same thing that we did with the election of President Obama. But my point is that in order for us to make one step, it seems that we have a mechanism where someone else must climb over top of us and give us a hand up. Meaning that we have to be handled, we have to be carried because we're not independent enough to carry on a journey using our own resources and our own sense of self worth and self pride to keep advancing. Now, I can remember the pride on my grandmother's face and my grandmother's case for a few years. When they found out that their relatives that were still down in Mississippi and Alabama didn't have to use the drinking fountains that said colored. They could go to the Woolworths and have lunch. So no more sicking of the dogs on them and people coming in and kicking your doors in at night, taking family members away. Or at least that's what we thought. So, in order for us to call attention to our plight, and I'm not saying that people didn't realize what was going on in the early 50s, early 60s. I'm not saying that black people didn't realize what was going on. But as we'll talk about, the division was not so great. There weren't as many groups that had their hand out or visibly wanted a piece of the pie or as a matter of fact, during certain parts of the 50s and 60s, there were certain groups that weren't even, at the table, uh, let alone talking about dessert. So when you look at history, the system has been geared, and I know some people may say I'm standing on the wrong soapbox here, and you might be in uh, the realm of thinking of Larry Elder or Tim Scott, where you do not believe that racism, is a part of the fabric of this country, where you believe that um, there is equal opportunity for everyone. And once again, I'm going to go back to history and the civil rights and the Equal Opportunity Act themselves, um, where yes, everyone is entitled to equal under the law, but we're also going to put you on a quota system. Okay, and I see Dr. Casey has joined us. As you know, I got a couple bones to pick with her tonight. It's just you just had to talk about just coming in from grilling.
Oh, wait, what bones you got to pick? I can spread bones upstairs if you want some.
That's what I'm talking about there. I'll be there as soon as I get finished grilling. Okay, all right, yeah,
I
yeah,
started a
all
little late, so I was
right.
running a little bit behind my children. make requests at the last minute, and I always try to oblige.
Okay. All right. So, okay. All right. I can't, like I said, I can't find anything with that. It's just, I thought that was a little jab there. Well, as soon as I get finished grilling, okay. All right. Well, I'm out here in San Diego. I mean, if anybody's grilling, it should be, down on the beach, so forth and so on,
Oh, I miss. That's one of the things that I really wanted to do when I came to San Diego. When I used to go there often, but one of the things that I definitely one of the perks of living there would be to grill on the beach and enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sometimes it's just good to go down and you can just sit a little bit above the beach and watch all the rest. Enjoy yourself. It's an amusement park too. But that's another. That's something we can talk about that a little bit later. But there were.
My glasses always look crooked when I be on here. I be trying to fix them.
Yeah, that's why I wear a hat. 'Cause it covers up a lot of things, But I was kind of telling like I'm doing another program this Wednesday,
Hmm.
and I did this program because of uh, what I have done with this show here.
What
When
kind of
I
program?
Well, it'll be a political program, but uh, it'll be more tuned to the mainstream than toward the black audience, as I have somehow turned this program into. But my when I originally started this program, I had a lot of veterans on. I had some a lot of uh, gay people on. I even had a few conservatives on. So I want to. The purpose of this program is to show how we are all playing a part in this political system, but we are constantly being cut off into smaller groups.
Hmm.
And my problem with that is that our portion of the pie hasn't increased, but the division of our slice has increased. At first, you had black and white. The white had three-quarters of the pie, and we had our little quarter. But then we started getting other groups involved, but they were always cutting off and sharing our piece of the pie.
So
Not that other.
what makes you think that they're cutting and sharing into our piece of the pie instead of kind of chipping away at the 3/4?
Because in many states, well, in a lot of the southern states, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, for instance, I think I think as a black man, I have the same constraints now in 2022 that I had in 1968, 1972, 1978.
Hmm.
You know, so I haven't seen how I've gotten a bigger piece of that pie. When I look at the economic situation, I had a bigger piece of the pie in the 70s and 80s when we were so called acquiring property, and we had all of the different, Fannie Mae and all the different mechanisms that they put in order for us to so called acquire property, which are now blocks that you can see for miles. There's food deserts. You got no more neighborhood stores. So it doesn't seem like you've increased my gross opportunities any larger. But what you've done is now I have more people. I'm separated. It's no longer black and white. I got white, and then I got Somalis. I got the Ghanaians. I got Japanese. I got I mean, now that everybody wants a piece of this pie.
But those
But
people were already in the mix and in the midst of acquiring um within the grand scheme of things.
well, let me kind of go back to my original premise here. Okay, first it was black and white because we had already killed off the Indians, so it was just
Well,
black and white.
the black was the Native Americans. They just
Right,
was retitled and relabeled.
right, right. So then we decided that we needed railroads, but since the black people were free and we could no longer use them as slaves, we brought the yellow people over, the Chinese, or to build our railroads. Then next, we brought over the displaced people from World War One. Okay, black soldiers couldn't it couldn't even come home and vote. They were still getting their ass kicked, just like we were, doing Vietnam and the other wars. So we didn't make any progress then per se as far as numbers. Sure, we were given certain things. You was given a bill of rights, as far as your VA bill, but you could only buy property within certain places. So therefore, yeah, all right, I can own a home on this block, but 30 years later, that block doesn't exist. I can see downtown from that block now. So that was another myth that was kind of perpetuated upon us. Then we had the equal opportunity, the don't ask, don't tell. All those different types of legislations where, that you could hide behind as far as your sexual preference, but you can't hide being black. You know,
I mean, the
uh,
don't ask, don't tell doesn't even really exist anymore.
but I'm just bringing it in historical context, you know. Uh, so meaning that it was much easier for you to be accepted for being different as far as your sexual preference, but you were always had that handicap of still a black man. I'm still a black woman. That's something that's out there. Doesn't matter, who I might be sleeping with or whatever. The first thing that you see is the blackness. Then we get into okay, well, now we need unions in order for us to be represented. But it always came down to just like in the military, the person that was in charge of the union didn't look like me. So I was never in charge of that either. Now we have LGBTQ, we have Asians, we have anti Semitic, we have all of these different people in line asking for and obtaining under the law some type of protection. But at the end of the line, as has been since the so-called 1619, the ones at the back of the line are the black people. So no matter who we take on as allies, it always seems that we're the one that's getting the smallest share of the pie. At least that's to me. Now I might be wrong.
So
That's the reason why I'm asking. For input from other people. I see Mr. Scott is here also. Go ahead, Dr. Casey.
I don't believe that what is taking place takes away from us. It just doesn't include us. And that is the greater thing. But you have to understand that when it doesn't include us, I keep saying this and I feel like it's going over your head. If you include what who we know as black or negroes into the equation and give them rights to discover who they truly are as being native to this land, then you take away what the Europeans have built on this land. Everything else becomes null and void because if you protect us, then you give us the opportunity to learn more. You give us the opportunity to put our foot in a better position and build a better foundation to understand our real heritage to this land. Then that means that you take back spirituality. That means you take back a lot of things that as long as they keep us at the bottom of the totem pole, as long as they put everything else in front of us, it's really a distraction to um the real foundation of what this land is and who it belongs to. But when I think about um then versus now, the first thing I think about is somebody like Pinky Cole. She's a person that has started Slutty Vegan here in Atlanta, and she travels all over the country thus far to serve people vegan food. Now,
I've heard of her. I've heard of her. I'm kind of familiar with her work, being a chef. So yeah.
she does a lot in the community. She does a lot outside of the community. But just recently, within the last 6 months to a year, her and her fiance bought up a whole block. So right now, we're in a position where a lot more Black Americans, Native, indigenous people are becoming more financially stable. I won't say that than we've ever been because we've been a collective very financially stable and well off several times, and then it has gotten robbed from us, taken from us, whether it's Tulsa being burned down, whether it's various black communities that were very extremely successful that were destroyed because of the threat that we pose if we are not below everybody else. If we actually get a financial stability in the black community, they won't be able to hold us down mentally, spiritually, financially, or any other way. Because once you get money and you're not fighting to figure out how I'm gonna eat, where I'm gonna live, how I'm gonna, clothe myself, then you are able to get the knowledge that you need to break all the strongholds that have been placed on us. And until you can break those mental strongholds to where you feel like you enslaved to the system, because everybody on welfare, they can only do so much. Even being on Social Security, you can only do so much before Uncle Sam and whoever else is in charge is hovering over your head to say, you know what, I'm gonna put you in your place. So it's a lot of trying to keep us in our place and make us the lower end, because if you know more, you do more. You do more, you end up not being subservient to the whole everybody else. Because right now it's people don't like to think of it this way, but the slave system has not changed. It didn't. The only thing they did was gave it a facelift. It
See,
is a rebranded to the workforce. The slave workforce turned into the workforce, and now it's like you still. Only thing they did was they started giving you a little bit of benefits. They started, you know what I'm saying, doing enough to keep you where you think you got to work and beat your brow to make this system work. If everybody stopped working, everything that they got going on would crash. That doesn't mean that things won't get done. It just won't be done by us. So it's like a magic trick where I can.
Well, in a nutshell, it's the same old soup just warmed over.
Oh yeah, yeah, warmed over. You know how that gumbo started out. It was something else, and then well, damn, I got some leftover this. I'm gonna throw that in there. I got some leftover that. I'm gonna throw that in there, or goulash, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just keep throwing the extra stuff in there, and then it keep doing it long enough. It's gonna end up turning good. Put a little extra seasoning on it, give it a little bit of flavor to it. Somebody gonna eat it, and if you're starving, you're definitely gonna eat it. It's gonna be good, even if it's nasty.
Okay. See, but see, Doc, this is my point because I don't think that you know that we have gotten out of that mentality that we deserve better. What I think, and like I said, maybe it's just because of these glasses I have on. They aren't rose colored, and they turn dark at times. So I don't see this great change that people are talking about because I see the same conditions that we've always grown up with in the black community.
I think this is the
But,
first
but,
time that so
but
many black people have become millionaires or become so financially stable to where they can start creating other millionaires. Now, a lot of black people are getting exploited by black people by selling them courses about shit that they barely know about, and then I'm gonna just charge you to tell you something that somebody just told me, or some stuff that I you could probably just look it up online and get it. But we have a better place in my eyes, and then I'm in Atlanta, so it's a little bit different here than any other place on earth. This is like Wakanda for real. So I see things a little bit different because the outlook of what I'm surrounded by is totally different. This is although it is a black um circumference surrounded by nothing but everything else. At the heart of it, it's a lot of people that are becoming successful, and it is trying to feed that success into other people.
see, I think Atlanta is more of the exception than the rule because you look at the other cities like Chicago, Houston, even out here in LA. Well, as you know, not knowing a whole lot about Mr. Scott's territory there, but I do know
Could have fooled me.
Right.
well, hey, uh, one thing, if I come on your show every week and I listen to you every week, I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna learn something. If you keep bringing me on every week, I'm gonna learn something. And if you keep telling me that you want change and you keep electing the same people, I still got the same gripe. But anyway, uh, what do you think, Mr. Scott? Have we become relaxed being on the bottom? I mean, and the as Dr. Casey points out, okay, we have made some economic changes, and we have made some type of progress, but it seems to me while we're running a 100-yard dash, everybody else is running, a steeplechase.
I have to say this before
Go-
I let Mr. Scott talk. One of the best things that is going on right now is people are waking up. People are getting more information. People are getting more knowledgeable about the reality of life, whether it is heritage wise, whether it is understanding how the laws work, how this country is built, and everything else. A lot of things that we have suffered from has really been the lack of knowledge. We don't know enough to do enough to change anything. So, one of the things that I see on social media and a lot of other places where people are actually getting the information and sharing the information, because before you get information and share the information, nobody is going to get far because don't nobody know. So the best thing that we have to do first is educate, and I believe that that's going on. It's just a slow process.
Slow process. 1619,
Do you know
2023.
how long it takes to re-educate and unlearn all of the crap that we've been taught? It took me damn almost 6 years just to shake everything that I learned about Christianity and religion, just to come to a place to where I don't feel like if I don't do something religiously, it's going to harm me, or if that's the reason why something's not working. It takes a long time to break those strongholds of what you've been told to believe.
But
You're gonna go to hell. You're going to
but
hell.
I mean,
but
shit,
but
they just told Beyonce she going. It's a whole preacher just told the whole church Beyonce going to hell behind the damn
uh,
something. Now, I know that he
uh,
didn't smoked a cigarette. I know he didn't had sex with somebody he ain't
you
supposed to have, but she the only
you
one going to hell for
you
something. Yeah.
you really don't want to listen. What's his name? Jenkins, Geno Jenkins, or whatever his name is.
Oh, Geno Jennings. Geno
Yeah,
Jennings out of Philadelphia.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he
Oh,
fooled you. You think they're
oh,
these Nation of Islam, bow ties?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. You know, right, Dr. Casey. Right now, you going to hell for that dress
Okay.
you got on. You showing your arms and
I
Those
can't
are
see it.
the
I can't see it yet. I'm looking, but I don't see it.
those are the strongholds that keep people afraid to branch out of what they've been told that they're allowed to do. So until people begin to break that mental blockage, that mental pressure, the mental manipulation, really, it's hard for people to get outside of what they've been engineered to believe. It's almost like
Well,
until
my stepmother and her family and all of these people that I know that have been going to church probably longer as
all they lives.
least yeah, at
Ain't
least
nothing
yeah,
about their lives changed
right,
either. They ain't got no
now
better.
now they've been told all these years about tithing. Now all of a sudden Cephalo says you don't have to tithe no more. So we, I mean but that's after he's
But it
got
was
his
never
but,
biblical though.
but that's after he's got his TV station, his 6 cars, his $25,000 suits and so on. But Mr. Scott, I mean we're we told this when we were told about the importance of education. We were sold that American dream, of a chicken in every pot, and you get a good job, you buy you a home, and you achieve that American dream. But most of those homes now that were sold back in those days are empty lots.
Or abandoned.
Yeah.
In Detroit, especially in Detroit. And so,
Not just Detroit. I can take you right down here in San Diego. Not just Detroit. Newark, New Jersey. I can, Camden, New Jersey, Philadelphia. I mean, when you start pointing fingers, I mean, hey, Pittsburgh,
It still happened
Cleveland.
here in Atlanta. It's still here. It's
Yeah,
Chicago,
still, it's
yeah.
everywhere.
yeah.
It's not really
See,
But
participated.
eh,
but see, you got to look at the root cause of all. See, nobody looks at this. I just came from a meeting, some community meeting. We got a new guy that's supposed to be some public safety commissioner here. Now, the guy is a big, high-profile guy. He's been on CNN. He's been police commissioners all over the country. And so I'm at this meeting with him and the interim police chief of the Minneapolis police force, and also this woman. Well, I don't know what I don't want to get into this trans stuff because people just, I don't get it. But this Andrea Jenkins, who's president of the city council, all these people are at this meeting 2 blocks away at a park. I used to play football, baseball. I coached, I umpired, I did everything there. And this high profile guy I can't think of what his name is. And you all know who he is because He's a known guy from all over the country, a black dude. He just gave the most perfunctory speech I've ever heard. And they paying this man $350,000 a year. And so he just couldn't wait to get out of this place. But the root of this stuff is the Confederacy, knuckleheads, nuts that are still running wild here in this country. If you go back and read the reason they did the Confederacy with this guy, Alexander Stephens, you read his speech. He said, we're seceding from the Union because the black man is subservient to us. He has no right. His lot in life is to work for us. And this is what the Confederacy was built on that whole thing, that we are not worthy. We don't count. We're here to do what they say do. And when you see the rise of these people, when you see these MAGA and still see that thing is still permeating this society.
But
This
Mr. Scott,
permeating the Bible. Let's say that we're, yeah.
Have we accepted that? That's my question.
Well,
Have
when
we
you say
accepted?
we, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know about we.
Okay,
I haven't, but I
okay,
read this stuff.
okay. When I say we, I'm talking about
Collective, Mr. Scott.
I will stand and where we stand along the political spectrum. That's what I mean when I say we.
Yeah.
Not you individually, but us as a people. We are still the lowest on the totem pole.
And I think those that don't wake up, because see, that mentality is still there, that they are above us. This is still there. You should read that thing by that. Oh, he's terrible. That little guy, he was a terrible racist. And that's what they built their whole. Then when you see those flags, when you see that's a homage to that. And in Dr. Casey's state, Georgia, that was their stronghold. I mean, that's where they had, how they have in South Dakota, they have the thing with the presidents. But they have one in Georgia in Stone Mountain, okay, that has all the Confederates that they're.
Oh, yeah.
They should tear that down. All those Confederates should have been hung, and that should be over with. But see, we still live with the permeation of that. We still live with that, with the redlining, with all the things that the schools that aren't as good, all the stuff that isn't as good for us. And I think that it's just until they eradicate this, I guess, but they were defeated. And they decided that this was going to be a united country where people could do their own thing. And see, but they still don't allow it. They still hang on to that. They still hang on to this.
Miss Sims, are you incognito tonight, or what?
There we go.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But I wanted to tell you guys too. Yesterday, I went to a restaurant. I'm part of a nonprofit group where we mentor kids. And we took these kids to a restaurant, a New Orleans restaurant in a place called St. Joseph. And I couldn't believe it. I saw the guy, and his name is Mateo McBee. And I'm like, I said, is your dad Ursel McBee that played for the Vikings? He said, yeah. And I lived with him in Mankato where they trained. And it was so wonderful to see this guy with this restaurant, New Orleans food. Oh, what was I to say? Oh, biscuits, shrimp, etouffee. Well, I don't know, James. JK3 might not know nothing about etouffee and all that. But see, it was delicious.
I keep telling you, I was a chef before. That's how I managed to survive after I got out of prison. I had to find something where I had to make sure I could have a job and I could have some food. So
etouffee. So you know about etouffee. You know about that.
I know about etouffee. I know, as a matter of fact, I spent 5 years in France.
Woo,
So I can burn a little bit.
woo.
But you know, but Miss Sims,
Yes.
uh, have we accepted being on the bottom? Have we accepted this as our fate? And as Mr. Scott was pointing out, and Dr. Casey was pointing out,
I would say
uh,
no, no,
go
not
ahead.
all of us. No, like no, not all of us. Uh, some people have not only within the black culture but other cultures because they're being taught, con- continue to be taught this, but not everyone, because if everyone still believed that, then you wouldn't have people out there like me that are organizers, or other people out there that knows the name of the game, knows how the game is being played, and trying to move ahead and make a difference. So I
Hi.
so my answer to that, no, not all of us have accepted that. It's still out there. I agree. It's still out there, that way of thinking, because it's being passed down generationally, and it's still out there. But everybody isn't accepting it.
Um, then okay. Uh, how do those that do not accept that quid pro quo, how do we carry that message successfully to those that are resistant to it, or those that believe that you know uh, we're making steady progress, and it's better to have that steady race than to have a competitive race.
I think one of the reasons is because those that out there and still trying to plot, so we don't have um, the highly visible platforms that the others that are perpetrating this have. A lot of us aren't in the political arenas that have the power and control to help keep this way of thinking going on and on and on. That's one of the reasons, I think.
Well,
Then there are,
Miss Sims, I
yes,
don't know if you heard earlier that I had been in a meeting with this new public safety guy. His name is Cedric Alexander,
okay,
and he was at a community meeting. I mean, he's a CNN. He's been police chiefs in New York and all around the country. And I talked to him personally, and
hmm
I gave him a card, and I told him, you need to get some of my books on the black community so you can know about the community. But it was clear to me. I mean, this guy's getting paid $350,000.
yeah,
This guy had a speech, man, that he probably pulled it out from wherever he, made speeches before. It was canned. And until we really get the people that really want to dive into this, and I told him, I said, right around the corner, the George Floyd Square, somebody got killed last night there again.
hmm
And they've got these people running this area that are just, so I don't know. These people come in to get this money, but I have no idea how engaged this guy really
right. And I think I
is.
saw him a
I
couple,
don't
uh, uh,
know.
maybe last month at in one of the city council meetings where they
And
were,
the chief was there too. The chief was there too. Andrea Jenkins was there, and the chief was there.
right. And there's been a big shakeup, even a lot of stuff going on at the city council level, yeah, regarding even a lot of the employees. Some of them have left, and some of them are in there saying have gotten the courage to make their voice known what's going on, and they're naming names, etc., etc. And I think one of the meetings that I saw, his name was put forth by I believe the mayor and whatever, and they were having a discussion about him. And at that particular meeting, he was there, and he spoke on his own behalf and stuff like that. And I kind of watched it. I don't get all the city council meetings, but um, I was um, I was kind of watching him, and I thought he would get in that position. But at that time, he was the only name being brought forth. And even I think the part of the city council members said, well, let's expand however they do it a little longer, so maybe more names will be brought forth. And I don't think more candidates were being recommended for his position or not. But um, when he presented himself then and he spoke like he knew what he was doing, etc., etc. But I didn't hear the particular meeting that you were talking about that he was in. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that's going on at the city council level, and people are scrambling, leaving. A lot of the black folks that have been hired there have already left. The ones that continue to remain, I mean, they've been stepping forward, naming names, pointing fingers and stuff, and it's been a struggle for them. And so yeah, I'll have to listen to more to find out more about him. But I'm glad I'm glad you're in there. Like I said, some of us have not bought into all this that's going on. It is still out there, and it's an uphill battle.
Dr. Casey, another distinct difference that I find is that our generation, me, Miss Sims, and I, and I'm going to include Mr. Scott, we wait for organization. Your generation uses, whether it's independent, such as your Freedom TV, Speaking Freedom TV, or whatever platform, you don't wait to get a whole group of people, organized, or you kind of, your generation is more of a let's take charge and hope as many people as possible listen. Or am I wrong about that?
You're right, but that's what I was saying when I said that a lot of people are beginning to become educated and then taking it upon themselves to upload and try to educate others as much as possible, because nobody has taught us a lot of things that we really need to know. So we as a collective don't feel like we have a choice but to begin to educate. Because again, you can't organize without education. Because to try to organize without the knowledge base, what are we organizing to do? What are we getting at here? Because I mean, you can come together, but come together up under what premise? Come together up under what expectations, up under what guise. So people are taking it amongst themselves to speak out, but there is also people that try and attempt to organize. I mean, we just our generation has a different ability to use platforms that other people either shy away from or did not have the opportunity to use before. Just think, um, there has never been this many people able to do podcast or broadcasting as there is right now, whether it is audio or video. So it gives people a better opportunity to really speak up, and even if it's individually, begin to organize through, again, education. It gives people a better basis to come together and stand and build on.
I
Yeah, but
agree
you
with
come together because you have common ground. And so we've
The
never been
reason why the
seen.
common ground is, though, the common ground becomes because of the education. The more people are understanding the knowledge base, then now we understand what we have in common. Uh, uh Prior to that, it is a lot of bumping heads because I know a little bit, you know a little bit, and nobody wants to collectively say, you know what? Well, we both know these things. It's like my cousin. I was fussing with him the other day, and he's in prison. But we was fussing on the phone because he has a view of how things should be, and I'm trying to tell him how things actually are. And although in most cases we're saying the same thing, a lot of people are so defensive because they're used to being told, no, you're wrong, or no, this, or no, that. So it's a little bit more defense mechanisms that's um, prowling and popping up than it is being able to communicate effectively. And that's the biggest problem
Well,
that we
that's
have
why
in our
things like
community is effective
CRT.
communication.
That's why things like CRT, because they don't want us to know. They don't really
Hmm.
want you to know the things that you need to know that's going to inspire you and motivate you, to say, we have a piece of this in this country. We have a big piece of this. We need to get our spot here. And I think that that's what continues to be the other side of this, that subverses our knowledge, subverses our it just somehow we have to break through that. We really have to break through the thing and assert ourselves because we're foundational here in this country, and we were here
Yeah,
when this
nothing
country was
nothing
developed.
has been built without us in this country.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything that is done right now is done based on us. We control the culture even though we don't financially have
yeah,
the overseer position. If we don't make a move, nothing goes moves.
yeah. That's so true.
I agree with Dr. Casey was saying in regard to a lot of those things haven't been passed down to them, and her generation. And I have children. I have children in her generation. Um, they're willing to, uh, like um, Mr. King was saying, they are willing to get out in the streets and do that battle. When you're in a war or a battle, a lot of people don't realize and see it that it's an invisible battle. But when you're in a battle, you don't send all your people to one place.
Hmm.
Like her generation, they're out in the streets and they're like spreading the news and shouting and willing to do that. But you have to have other people also. That's while they're out in the street, you got to have somebody, yeah, out in the political arenas, out at the
Hmm.
city council or at the state legislature or wherever, dealing with that political aspect of whatever's going on, because that's what controls this country. That's what this country is built on in terms of the voting. And so
See, but like in Atlanta, we have that. We have Killer Mike Render. I believe that's his last name. Killer Mike, Ti. A lot of people actually come together collectively to stand up for bigger
Herschel
issues here
Walker,
in Georgia.
Herschel Walker.
Now, come on now, don't throw that fool in there. He ain't standing up for nothing. He don't even know what he's talking about half the time.
but it is anybody publicly out there saying, like I've heard you all say, things regarding Herschel Walker's inexperience, his
Oh,
not
yeah.
knowing exactly. Are there people out there, enough people out there saying it, and are there people? Because it takes a certain amount of courage to go against the opposition, especially with if they're larger and stronger than
We
you
got
all,
to get
and the
back to
people
common sense.
and,
We
and the
have,
people that are speaking against uh, using his an example, are the people that's speaking against them, or do they have supporters who's supporting them in the background? You can be a support of in more instances than just money. Sometimes it's your voice and just showing up. That's kind of supportive. you know who's out there supporting them? The ones that have the courage and the knowledge to speak out and point out the flaws that are in the system and that's working against
yeah,
everybody.
but
Well,
until we get to common sense. Now there was a shooting here at the George Floyd thing the other day, and they're saying, well, the shooter knew the victims. Well, they don't know who, but then the victims must know who the shooter is. Why don't they say? But they don't say that. They just say that the shooter knew the victims and he got away. Okay, well, don't the victims know who shot them? I mean, don't they know who they have? But they never find nobody. It just goes into the ozone. And
It's
these
not.
are the kind of things that don't address things. They don't address things. That's just a small example to me of the ineptitude of the environment that we live in now.
Well, I, I, I'm going to come back to that this topic, especially when Brother Williams gets here. But uh, I'm going to talk a little bit about. I want to talk about this Brittany Griner thing
Yeah,
here.
let's talk about her. I don't feel no
Uh,
sympathy.
and I don't either. But my gripe is a little bit different. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we had the same gripe, but my gripe is, like you're telling me that she had to go over there for economic reasons, and she had been over there before, and all this and that and the other. But you know, did she ever have to live off $15 an hour? I mean, so I mean, so I'm not buying this economic thing. I mean, change your lifestyle just like the rest of us do. It's not necessary for you. There are a whole lot of people in this
Surviving off of
country
way less.
that yeah, like a social security check or maybe even less than that. So I don't have that type of sympathy. When somebody is making six or seven figures a year. So but uh, it seems to me, and we were, talking about the status of athletes and things like this. But here's my take on this, and that is, like I said, she went over there to supplement her income, but she knew the laws of the country to begin with, and number two, we're about to, we're talking about, oh, this woman, she got 9 years, in a Russian prison, this and that and the other. But we have people in this country that are doing life.
Mm-hmm.
Life. Listen to that again. Life. People are doing life. 3 strikes for the same amount or sometimes less. And we're not concerned about letting any of those people out of jail. Why are we so concerned about Brittany Griner? And I mean, uh, it, 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 what's your take on that, Mr. Scott? I want you to get in on this first.
Well, he just got caught up in some mess. I mean, you have to know, okay, you're black. Okay, now as long as you stay black, wherever you go, you black. And you think you can go on over
You
whatever
mean
you
you
want to
can't
do.
leave it in
You
the
can go on over.
suitcase? You,
Hey, they check
you,
your suitcases. This is their country.
She's
This is
black
their
and
country. I mean, you
she in
gotta.
the LGBT community. That's 2 strikes already for her. In a place
There
that
you
do not
go. And they
support
don't
that
play that.
lifestyle.
And they don't
Mm-mm.
play that over there. They don't play that. And so, I mean, I hope she gets out of there. I mean, I don't wish that a fate on nobody. But I mean, what kind of message is this sending? That okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to give some. What is this? They want to trade some guy some killer or some, for
he's an
her.
arms
I
dealer.
mean, it's
Yeah,
just, what do they call him?
he's an arms
Angel
dealer.
or something. What do they call him?
Yeah,
Some old kind of foolishness. And so, I mean, that's about
Mrs. Scott, you
marijuana
breaking up.
in vaping.
Yeah, he's breaking up.
Oh, I'm breaking up now. Am I back?
you back now. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about marijuana and vaping. I mean, everybody knows that's no problem. I mean, it's just the government. It's illegal now. If they can make $1 off it, it's okay. if they can make some money off of it. So that doesn't matter if it hurts you. Just like they did for cigarettes. It was killing people. My dad died oxygen, a smoker. He lived with this oxygen, couldn't go nowhere without that thing for years behind smoking. And they knew that stuff was killing him. But so Brittany, I hope she gets out, but she's stepped in it, and so I don't know. I don't know.
Dr. Casey, I'm the other way. I think she should do
I
9 years and a day, but
that.
Well, I have a complex view of it. We've already mentioned that she's black, so she just that is already a strike. You got to tread lightly when you brown. Uh, Going to a country that does not support LGBTQ is already another strike that she should have accounted for when she decided to go. One, when she decided to go there. Two, when she decided to go there with an illegal substance in that place. I don't think that she should get a pass. Because this is not her first time going to Russia, I'm sure. But I know for a fact that she should know the damn law when she go over to a place. Regardless if it's her first time or her 100th time, you supposed to know the law of the place that you're going to so that you don't break the law. And then the other part is that she confessed. She said she did it. She was wrong for just saying that she did it, because when she confessed and pled guilty, you're not just pleading guilty to having the marijuana, you're pleading guilty to the knowledge of breaking the law. Pleading not guilty and saying I didn't know it was a law that I was breaking would have been a whole different stance than saying, yeah, I did it. And that's kind of like a slap in the face. So I don't think she's gonna be over there for 9 years. But I
no.
also recently was reading that they have athletes that have broken the law and went to jail. So if they put their own athletes in the jail, she is not she shouldn't get no special privilege. It shouldn't be
Or
something
she
that
had to plead guilty. She had to plead guilty over there. She couldn't say I'm not guilty, or then they would have really threw the book at her. So she had
if
to say,
they was
okay,
if
she's trying to go
I disagree, because
Yeah.
when you plead guilty, you're pleading
to the
guilty to the knowledge of breaking the law. Did she know that she was breaking the law when she did it? Because if you don't know that you're breaking the law, if you're not aware of the law, then you pleading guilty is saying that I am aware that this was a law that I was breaking and I'm going to take full consequence. So guess what? This is the consequence. Do I think she's going to do a whole 9 years? No, they already negotiating trying to get her home. But in order to negotiate, they got to give her they got to stroke her. They got to put her in a position to where they, the United States will want to negotiate to get her home. If she was fully aware that she should not have the marijuana in the first place. And I don't think that she would lose no sleep if it was somebody else that was in her same position. She would be sleeping just like a baby with her wife in their bed if she was not in that position herself. It would not, she wouldn't cause no ruckus about somebody else being in that position. And from what I understand, she has had some not so good things to say about the United States. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that just don't rule in her favor right now in my eyes. I mean, like anybody else would have to do the same time. But then now they want her to from my understanding, everybody that's in jail in Russia, they have a job. They have to have a job. They have to be productive. And they're posing that she coaches basketball while she's in jail. And people are saying, no, she shouldn't do that. If they have athletes that go through the same thing, then she should suffer the same consequences that they do to their own people. Everybody knows that Russia is the craziest place to go and get in trouble. It's almost like Russia is like our equivalent to Texas. You don't go to Texas and do no trouble because your ass is not coming home when you want to come home. Texas, Kentucky, all of those places is certain places that you know where
Don't
there's
mention
laws and
Kentucky now after you just stepped all over Brother Robert's shoes. Now you want to talk
Yeah.
about Kentucky, you just stepped all his shoes, stomped on it. Now you want to talk about Kentucky.
I'm
but
just saying, like it's certain stuff like when you go places, you're supposed to, as an athlete, if she's going over there up under professional premise, then she's supposed to know the law. She's supposed to know what she's there for and go what the hell she there for. If you got anxiety, then get a prescription and some stuff that it is legal over there, or wait till you get there. Somebody there got weed that you could have got some
When
weed
in
from.
Rome, you do what the Romans do. When in Rome, you do what the Romans do.
She's trying to be in Rome and act like she damn in Egypt. She not there.
Miss Sims, have you taken that joint off over top of your windshield yet?
I wasn't able to. I don't have enough money to even purchase it. But I think I did see one of your guests smoking something one time. one time. But I kind of agree with Dr. Casey on some of what she's saying. And I go back to the bottom line and talk about people's behavior, because she isn't the first one that's gone to Russia or other places and broken the law and then expect the United States to come, the whole United States, the military or whatever, to come to the rescue. And you have to do something like that. You have to have some sort of mentality of air of privilege, arrogance to go into the face of the enemy of another country and do something like that, because you know you're not going to get away from it. And then the country that you're from, and Dr. Casey just mentioned some things I wasn't aware of, the country that you're from, of course, then their humanity comes out in regards to, they don't want anything to happen to one of their citizens, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot, when people do things like that, to me, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. And one of them is, and being a basketball player, did the team thought they were, or maybe some of the privilege came from, maybe they thought the Russians held them in such high esteem and whatever, that they felt they could have the privilege of doing what they want that was illegal. And I do hope she gets out of there. But usually things like this, sometimes they do the trading and things like that. But there have been even Christian workers and things like that, political people from the United States that have gone to other countries and be speaking against the country, et cetera, et cetera. They have been jailed. And sometimes they don't get out alive.
James, move your microphone away from your nose.
Okay, and sometimes they don't get out of there. I think it was in the last couple of years, there was a young fellow that was over there, and he died. He got to be his health got so deteriorated that when they finally got him,
that was China, I think, though. That was China.
A foreign country. It may have been he died, and so to me, the mentality is kind of like people here in the United States that go to dangerous places, like climbing way up in the Alps and things like that. One person, one or two people, and doing dangerous things. Once they get into trouble and they know that it's dangerous, they have all kind of warnings not to do this, but they choose to do it. Then when they get in trouble, then their expectation is to have somebody else, father, a mother, come and rescue them. And sometimes the rescuers themselves get killed and end up in all kinds of various health positions or death. Then the people who got in it, who had the nerve, who felt the privilege and arrogance to go up and do what they wanted to do. And so there's a lot of going on, and a lot of this, to me, is people's behavior, and they're thinking to doing something. And I think Dr. Casey really hit it on in terms of, if you know the law, don't know the law, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the aspects of what's going on, I think.
Bill, how are you doing this evening?
Just fine. It's interesting to see, where certain people draw certain lines. And
well, I kind of set the tone for this because I know we talked about this on the sports grid, but And we were all talking about, well, she has to do this in order for her to make her money, in order for, hey, change your lifestyle. Live off $15 an hour. I didn't tell you to go over to Russia to play basketball. Live like the rest of us. So therefore,
Well, nobody, but nobody
so
says that to Barry Bonds or LaMelo Ball. I mean, I
but
think
but Barry Bonds or LaMelo Ball did not take marijuana into Russia. LaMelo
they
Ball
didn't
went.
have to go to Russia.
Hold on. LaMelo Ball had one of the balls had
That's,
nerve
that's
to
LiAngelo.
shoplift in China.
That's
They put
LiAngelo.
his ass out.
Yeah, that was LiAngelo, and they got him out right away. But
Right.
here's my point. LiAngelo and two of his UCLA teammates got busted in Russia. I mean, not Russia, in China, shoplifting at the Louis Vuitton store of all places. They were out like that, right? I mean, boom. I mean, they barely had a chance for their hot items to get cold that they stole. The thing is that she makes over 5 times as much playing there as she makes playing. So in order to have any chance to make any real money, because basically that's how they can afford to play here, James. That's subsidized.
That's not my fault. What if she had a job at McDonald's? I didn't tell her to do. She doesn't. She doesn't. Hold it, Bill. Bill, it is not necessary for her to make 6 figures in order for her to live.
But the point isn't for her to live. The point is for her to play at the highest level of her profession. She is an elite level person.
Right.
She doesn't work at McDonald's. She's not a truck driver. She's not a kindergarten teacher. She is a top 10 to 12 percentile. No, top 10 to 12 hundredth of a percentile person at her profession. And so, yes, she should be getting paid like an elite level performer. And in order to get that money, she has to travel overseas. Now, why that is a whole other show. But but here she's been going to Ekaterina since 2014. And I will bet you $1 to a donut, if not every single time, most of the time she's taken whatever with her and there's never a problem. It's only a problem now because of the other stuff that's going on.
There you go. Political pawn. Political pawn.
Right. We'll agree on that. We'll agree on that.
They had no problems with whatever she was doing until very recently. And so her ignorance wasn't so much of the laws of Russia. Her ignorance was that, I didn't realize they were going to use me in this. I thought, because she's beloved there. She's bigger there than she is here, James. Like, the only reason people recognize her here because she's 6'8", right? And people don't see 6'8" black women all that time. It's like, oh, you're probably Britney Griner. But she has like fan club there. Like she's one of the top selling jerseys there, right? Bigger there than she is here. That's why she goes there, because she's bigger there than she is here, right? So I would never say, why don't you work at McDonald's, whatever it is, or why don't you just live like you work at McDonald's, whatever. That doesn't make any sense. She's an elite level athlete, one of the best of the best of the best, right? And we don't ask other athletes who don't have to do all these things to trim back their lifestyles, right? So the fact is that she doesn't live nearly as lavishly as loads of other athletes. I mean, even with what she makes over there, the top guys in baseball giving that out in tips to the attendants in the damn locker room. Well, her salary is what guys give out in tips in Major League Baseball, James.
Brother
Is she
Robert,
a woman?
And there it is.
Brother Williams, like I said, I understand her being an athlete. I understand, she wants to maximize her talent for as many years as possible. I understand all of that. But as I said when I began, we have people in this country that are serving a 3-strike law, serving life for having maybe that amount or anyway less than a pound of weed. We have people serving life. So why should we be so responded to her needs and getting her back when we have people that are serving the same type of sentence and in a lot of cases, just as much politically as she is.
Well, when you put it that way, James, I would say for the most part, no, we shouldn't. But you have to recognize the fact that going back to what Bill said, with her status and who she is, and with the political climate being what it is, which is why she's locked up. You got to look at it like that, which is why they went ahead and used her as an example. That's the name of the game. The point is, it is for Russia to use this as an opportunity. And not only that, what they're attempting to do, I would say what they're attempting to do is try to make America look bad if it chooses not to try to play the game.
Yep.
So it's just all, to me, it's just all politics right now. It was just a perfect storm. Situation came along at the right time, and they took advantage of it from a political standpoint. And it kind of, like, again, like Bill said, she had no idea that she would be the one chosen and pulled, but they would have been snatching somebody up. I think, even from the standpoint of if they had to smuggle and put something in somebody's situation, or they would have nabbed the CIA agent or somebody. So this is just a high profile situation, intentionally, to just play that game, play that political game, and that's really all I see it as. I do have one question for y'all, sports people, though, and maybe I'm sure y'all have already answered this, because I don't know much about this, but I thought that either the manager or the coach at some point would be like, well, because of the political climate and the things that are going on, we got to scale back, and we got to do this, and we can't allow this, can't allow that. And I would just a little bit of experience I had from a martial arts perspective. You've always had a manager or a coach looking out for your best interest, because when the players are down, then nobody gets paid. And so from that standpoint, you real concerned about those people that you are managing, that are putting money in your pocket. So to me, it's not so much the player's fault, although obviously she, knew what she was doing, but it's the management that's supposed to make sure that things get tightened down in situations to where um, circumstances like these can come up. And
But
that's just my question as to
That's a great point.
that
but
whole
That,
point.
that's a
but
great point.
but brother Robert, I mean,
That's a great point.
as a musician, aren't you putting them kind of in the same category as roadies? I mean, because it's the roadies that make sure like the equipment gets put away and the other little stuff that happens. I mean, just for being around the music industry. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, usually you are okay. Hey, man, look, our tour is taking us so and so next time. Make sure that you had da 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 da, or if you're gonna do this, make sure you give it to me and I'll take care of it. I
Yep.
mean, isn't that the
Yep.
way it usually goes? Come on,
Yep.
come on, come on, there, Mr. Scott. You're a musician.
I
Tell us
mean,
about some of
but
that.
isn't she supposed to read the room? She should be aware of what's going on in politics to be kind of abreast of what she should be trying and what she should not be trying. That is her personal responsibility, despite if somebody else is checking up on her.
At the
She's
end of the
supposed
day,
to figure
yes.
it out.
At the end of the day, yes. But
You
the
know,
point is
Russia and the
protect your
United States is
investment.
going head to head. They just had a whole thing about the damn elections. They have so many things that is going on where Russia is like wilding out, period. So why would you not be extra precautious just to know and make sure that you don't get caught up in it?
Well, well,
I think Dr.
like
Casey mad because she taller than you. She taller than you. That's what you
I
mad
wouldn't
about.
want to be that tall. I wouldn't want to be that tall. I would never want to be in her position because right now she is not doing well.
but
Well,
like you mentioned though, Bill, she's been going over there since 2014. She's been through a lot of these different political situations. During the Trump era, she was going and coming as she wished, and like she said, she got Dr. Casey, she got comfortable.
Comfortable.
yep,
What
yep.
Future said. Future said, "Don't get too comfortable." Rihanna
see,
can
that's
sing too.
why
Who she need to listen to
that's
somebody
why
because
Angelo Dundee is the greatest manager in the history of sports because he took care of the great man Muhammad Ali. He allowed the Muslims, Herbert Muhammad, to be in there and the manager to keep the mob out of him. And so that management is a huge thing. And I
That's what
agree
I'm
with
talking
that.
about.
I mean, they should have been looking out for her. And she, because they get paid too. She's part of their money. There's agents that are behind all these athletes.
That's
After
like when
after hearing Mr. Carroll speak of the high esteem that she's held in Russia, it fits back into what I was saying. Well, maybe that's one in terms of her behavior. Maybe that's one area where she felt that she was in such high esteem and her status of getting that privilege or an air of arrogance that
untouchable.
they weren't going to do anything to her. But I think a lot, and then she could have also gotten caught up into a lot of people forget about. There's always that political aspect of it in regards to okay, back in the United States, what kind of relationship does she or her manager or team have with the state representatives that's that represent her from whatever state she's in? Does she have political power in the embassies if they're still in Russia? So there's always that political element that is there, and that's having that political element back here in the United States allows some people to get out much sooner than other people when they get caught up in a lot of the form crimes and things like that, and so that also feeds into what I said. There's a lot of other things going on with this in regards. I also thought of what Mr. Williams had said in regards to what are the managers, what is her team people doing in regards to where they're coming from, or what are they saying about their team players going over there back and forth. It, it, it's it's a sad situation that a lot of her, it seems like a lot of her behavior and things and actions played into that now she's in really a dire circumstances.
Another situation that I wanted to talk about, and I had talked about this a little bit earlier. Me and Dr. Casey had talked about it a little bit before Mr. Scott came in, but I think he got in on the tail end of it. And I was talking about the political situation in as far as the division of wealth, supply, and demand. And the example that I was trying to use in the first part of the program, Dr. Casey, you want to kind of fill everybody in on what was going on with that?
Well, the premise was James is under the assumption that uh, we have been left behind and out of the pie. White America basically has had 3/4, and the little 1/4 that we got is getting split up by all of the new demographics that are coming and taking claim over um, basically the political issues, and they just keep giving other people um, leeway and protections that Black Americans are not technically getting. And we've kind of been, pushed out of the way of the forefront and pushed to the bottom of the barrel.
Um,
Would that
and
solidify?
yeah, well, kind of what I'm saying is that while there is a whole pie, white America has 3/4 of the pie, but our 1/4 of the pie is getting split into everything from uh, your sexual preference to what kind of car you drive, whether or not you're on welfare. I mean, it seems like the only part of the pie that is being divided is that 1/4 of the slice. Everybody else re- retains, maintains, and controls their power and their own destiny. Do you agree with that, uh, Brother Williams?
Yeah, I agree with the fact that you're saying that that same slice of the pie keeps getting divided. But when I look at that, I look at I just want to look at basic math when you talk about that. If the population is constantly growing, but land mass is not growing along with it, to me, land is about everything. When you talk about a small percentage of the wealth being controlled, I mean, large percentage of the wealth being controlled by a small percentage of the people, they're going to hold on to their land. They're going to hold on to their wealth. And as the population grows, the population is forced to fight over the same section of crumbs that is allocated for that population. That's just basically how it's always been. And so the name of the game is to constantly re-innovate ways of conquering divide, re-innovate ways to cause people to fight amongst themselves, to stay disfranchised, to stay ununified, to keep us in so much of a chaotic flux that we have things that will keep us at each other's bay and at each other's throats. So yeah, each and every innovative way you can come up with to divide the people and to get the people to come against themselves so that they don't look at the real enemy or look at the real problem is what you do to control the masses of the population. It only makes sense to me. Land is not growing, population is growing. Land is actually shrinking because it's trying to meet the needs and demands of a overpopulated environment from that standpoint in terms of the way wealth is being distributed and land is being distributed and resources is being distributed. So yeah, to me it's not a surprise or a puzzle as to why it's the way it is. What surprises me more than anything is that it continues to happen, that same cycle continues to happen, and we think something's different and we think something's going to change and we think people are going to just have a change of heart simply because greed is going to maintain greed and it's going to be generational. If For us to think that it's going to be any other way doesn't make sense. And to me, for us to think that you can simply expect an oppressor to not be an oppressor doesn't make sense. A predator will be a predator. If the prey continues to be a prey, then the prey is going to stay a prey. You have to switch up. You have to recognize that self. That it goes back to me, self determination. You got to recognize that if you want things to be better, then you have to change. And change comes the longer you wait to change, the harder that change is to come. Whether we talk about individual, family, or collective. If I wait until I'm 50 or 60 years old to start exercising, it's gonna be a hell of a lot harder for me to make a few steps than it would be if I recognize the fact that hey, I need to be in top strength now. If I wait till I'm 50 to start eating right, it's gonna be a hell of a lot more damage that done took place. So if we know these things from that basic element and that basic concept, why we don't seem to recognize that same principle applies across the board. The bottom line, if we wait to the next generation to do something about what we should have done the previous generation, it's going to be that much more crystallized, that much more embedded, and that much more harder for the next generation to make a difference. That's my
Miss
answer.
Sims, Miss
Yeah,
Sims, what's your thoughts on that?
repeat the question again. I was thinking, listening to him, and then my mind was doing double tracking. What's repeat the question again? In regards to us, things are shrinking. He was, Mr. Williams was talking about me.
Are we consistently sharing our piece of the pie and getting the result being a plate of crumbs rather than a piece of pie?
It's getting smaller. It's shrinking. We're accepting it. Some of us are accepting and going along with the system in terms of the black population shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And a lot of black folk don't seem to be noticing this. are noticing what's going on. And here again, here in Minnesota, everything has a political connection. An example of that, a few years ago, over at the state legislature, they have various councils on the various cultures that are here in Minnesota, like the Asian culture, Indian, things like that. But a few years back, when a lot of the African immigrants were coming in, and one of the councils that over at the legislature was called the Council on Black Minnesotans. But that particular year, there was a big hoo-ha about money funding, and so the legislature wanted to do away with the Council on Black Minnesotans. A lot of the black politicians at that time, they were in there, doing due diligence, trying to negotiate not to do away with that, with the Council on Black Minnesotans, because it was needed. And so the compromise was, okay, if you want the state to keep funding money to this particular organization and recognition of black folk, we're going to change the name. And so they changed the name from the Council on Black Minnesotans to the Council on People of African Heritage. So that way they were allowed black folk, but still including black folk, but they also wanted a lot of the African immigrants to be included to in that. What that did, that weakened a lot of the power of black folk here in Minnesota in regards to us having our own council of black Minnesotans, and money was being funded through that particular organization to do various things statewide. But and so they here in Minnesota, if you are have color on your face, they want to squeeze you all into the category of being black, and that isn't necessarily so. And even a lot of the Africans from the continent, they didn't go along with that in regards to we're not black. I mean, we're Nigerian, we're various countries that you come from. And so that's one of the ways that, and this was maybe 10 years ago. And so at this point, it is the black population in terms of numbers decreasing, and the visibility our visibility is also decreasing, because it reminded me kind of like when it was done during the Civil War in terms of the area of Reconstruction, when the slaves were set free, et cetera, et cetera. The people in power started electing a lot of the black people to positions of power in terms of what we call now Congress now, the legislature, state legislature, senators, legislatures, in regards to using black folk in order to get certain rules and regulations passed. And so they use black folk in in political positions. I don't know. A lot of the black folk were educated, as I remember some of my history. But then along comes the carpetbaggers or people from other areas of the country. And so you had more people, black folk, white folk coming in. And so they found that they didn't need a lot of black people anymore. So they passed a law that in order to serve at those high levels of politics, you had to own land. And during that time, very few black folk that was just free owned land. And so once the black folk had served the status quo, then they came up with a law to get rid of them, to get them out of there. And that was one of the laws that came about. And in regards to comparing it now, one of the ways that we are becoming invisible here, I know in Minnesota, is combining all people of color, Indian or Asian, whatever, put them in all into one group called they call it BIPOC, Black Indigenous People of Color. And a lot of people that realize what's going on don't, and me included, I don't go along with that term BIPOC because Black folk and Native Americans are protected classes in regards to the government and certain things and whatever. But if you put everybody in that in that one category, you include everybody and his grandmother that has skin. And so here again, we're fading into the background because a lot of the organizations in political, a lot of community organizations don't realize what's going on. They're using the term instead of saying, actually name and saying Black folk, Blacks, Indigenous people, Asian people. They just say BIPOC, and a lot of the money goes into that.
But Miss Sims, if we keep dividing ourselves into these little niches and these little groups, how can we expect for other people to take us seriously when we talk about unifications or coalitions?
Here again, people have to speak up and educate even our white supporters or a lot of these things that are going on. Also, it's affects
You ain't
a
talking
lot
about
of
white people. You said that you didn't accept the term.
yeah, but a lot of my people that I work with on various organizations like the Department of Transportation, EPA, and whatever, they're using this term, but they aren't hearing from Black folk like me more that, hey, don't use this term because it is excluding us. It is putting us at the back of the bus, and eventually we're fading and fading. So we don't call ourselves that. We don't want to be included when you say this. It takes away from us and advances the other folk.
Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to start with what Brother Williams said. Many years ago, my father said to me, they're not making any more land, right? The earth is about as big as it's ever going to be. And, the population has gone up by almost 500 million people since my dad had that conversation with me. So it's getting tight. And when people talk about things like climate change, things that all goes back to some extent to a finite planet. There's only so much of everything to be had on the planet Earth, and an ever increasing demand on said planet. So there's all these things that we needed a little bit of 150, 200 years ago that we need a lot of, right? So to produce all the plastics that, you end up throwing away because they're packaged around all these things you get from Walmart and all these other things that people buy that they may not even necessarily want or need, but they buy because they've been programmed to buy. So there's this incredible, hamster wheel of our, consumption, production, so that we can keep the ogre of our, capitalism and everything that it feeds alive. So when you are talking about, which group gets exploited hardest or best or worst or whatever you would put it, I mean, we're always in there. Native Americans are, plucky also, like, hey, don't forget about us. We got really screwed hard. So we're all like competing in the oppression Olympics. We're always on the victory stand somewhere, though. Like, so one thing goes into the Black people. We may not always win, but we're always at least big medal. We always get a medal in the oppression Olympics every time. Yeah, of course. Yes, of course there's not enough. That's how you drive a scarcity-based economy, right? In order for this economy to work, you have to create the perception of scarcity. As I mentioned when we talk about the whole oil and gas price thing, do you know how long it takes when something happens for that ripple effect to actually hit the marketplace? It takes months and months, possibly years. There's billions of barrels of refined oil. And then from that refined oil, sweet light crude, as they call it, that's turned into petroleum. I mean, it would take a very long time to use up all of it to get to what would be making new petroleum. But as soon as something happened, right? Oh, there's our excuse to, turn the heat up underneath the frog. So that's really what we're looking at when you're talking about slicing up of the pie. First of all, it's the perception of that it's a pie, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, as long as you get people to just see it as a pie, then then they're all gonna get there and fight to get their slice, right? If you get people to see it as like a garden, right, where if we are more efficient and if we only use what we need, then the garden flourishes. But that's not how people want to look at it. It's a pie. There's only so much pie. We got to slice. And so now you get people, it's like Black Friday, right? When people are trying to get Teddy Ruxpin or PS5s or whatever the hell it is people decide to, in mesh tops, fight over now at those sales. So that's why we have this issue, is the perception of how you got to fight for it. You got to get this. You got to scratch and claw to get your little piece. And as long as we all see it that way, we're going to continue down this path. It is not until we see it, like I said, it's like a garden, right? Where it's like a community garden, and we all do the right things. We might not all get fat, but we'll all be fed, right? If we would just do the right things and contribute to the garden. But no, we don't want to do that. We're going to slice pie. That's why we're having this problem, Jay.
You agree with that, Dr. Casey?
I agree that as long as we see it as a pie, there will always be division, because everybody is scraping for the scraps. And the truth of the matter is, it really isn't a pie. It is more of a garden, because I don't even think that we get the small that if it was a pie, if America was a pie, then we own the pie. We own the pan that the pie is made in. We just don't know that we own it. We don't have the realization, the understanding to even fathom. I always say this: if we were given the opportunity to be put in top leadership positions, we wouldn't know what to do with it, because it's not enough of us that have direction, to have a plan, to have something that's in a structure to say, okay, well, if we in this position, this is what we're doing. There's no planning. There is always we're not proactive, we reactive. We react to everything. There is no proactive plan to say, okay, these are the things that we're really after or we really want. Only thing that they can say is reparations. Okay, if we take reparations off the table, what else? Nobody else has nothing else other than they want their 40 acres and a mule. Fuck the reparations. Let's put ourselves in position to where we don't need the reparations, because we know where we stand. We know, and we understand this ownership of the natives of this land. But until that goes back to what I was saying about the education, until we learn more about who we are and the structure of how things have gotten to where we are right now, it will always be a money grab and just trying to see what we can get. It's not about what we can get. What can we sustain? What can we plan for? What can we maintain? What can we structure um, our mindsets around in general? Because right now, if you put most leaders in a position to lead, they're gonna go with whatever they've been told to go on. And it's just like most pastors, they not talking about shit that they know because that's what they know. They just saying what somebody else already told them to say, that they didn't heard from somebody else, that he said, she said, the telephone game has been played out. And we have to get out of that mindset of what grandma and them said versus what do I know myself? What can I stand on myself? And a lot of times, a lot of people don't know enough on their own to stand on anything. They can only stand on what somebody else told them that might be true, might not be true. The story might have got mixed up a few times. So it's more about education, understanding the position that we're in, not the position that they want us to see us in, but the position that we actually hold in the Northern American region.
Miss Sims,
Yes. Yes.
anything you want to contribute to that?
Well, when Bill was talking, in regards to part of what I heard, and it's not exactly what he said, was part of what he was speaking was
You're going in and out. We can't hear you. You're
Bring
going
your
in
mic
and out.
closer to you.
But what he was speaking of, part of brought to mind how an example of what he was speaking of, part of an example of what he was speaking of in terms of how the system uses and plays and people in power. It reminded me of things that happen here in this country in regards to, here again, that money power structure in regards to through the years, the how the right people saying the right things that they want to keep that money flow through the years. Toys, actually, toys that, especially around Christmas time, like the Cabbage Patch dolls and the other little Santa bears and stuff before Christmas, and what all those toys were out there, and people were buying them, like a day, just people that were buying toys ahead of time, they bought them. Then all of a sudden, there becomes a big scramble, and somebody said something, and people are going out of their minds to stand in line for Cabbage Patch dolls, and it's like Black Friday after Thanksgiving and stuff. Somebody is and then once people get interested in all that and buying and willing to spend their money, then you stop making so many, so the price will go up and more people want to demand, or want to get them, and that's just how the games, the people, the power players, the people in various positions of the system know how to play the game and affect people's behavior to keep the money flow going, and sometimes over stupid or real simple things like toys. And so again, it's people's behavior, how you can control what you say, and who says it can control people's behavior. And that goes politically too. And just like last week, we had an election here in Minnesota in regards to our congressional figures and Hennepin County sheriffs and stuff like that. Sick as I was, I drug myself to the poll and voted. But the next day, I'm speaking of my Ward 5, I looked at the actual number of people who voted for Don Samuels or the young lady that's already in there. And it was less than 400 people that had voted in this ward. And there's thousands of people. And so I was ticked off. I was highly educated and pissed in regards to the number of people that didn't vote and that say they want changes and willing to do this and out in the streets and stuff. They're missing that link of it's political. It's all hooked into that. And I felt frustrated also because of my continued actions in regards to being out there as an organizer, and other people that are out there that are, trying to push this ball uphill, and the residents aren't supporting us in regards just to the voting to make changes of people that are in positions. And I was highly ticked. I still, and it made me want to go. And a lot of people maybe don't realize that you can actually go, go in and actually see who voted. I think you can't tell how they voted, but I resisted at that time. The next day, actually going into actually to see the people that actually had voted. That I mean. Out that are willing to go out in the streets and risk their lives and stuff. And there's a lot of light rail systems and stuff coming in there, and they say they won't change. But when it comes to actually where you make the change at the top, they're not there. And I was even more pissed off at politicians. because the game of the politicians is the less people that vote, the more chance they get their message out. And the people that are voting, those are the ones that they will go to, various political meetings and things like that. And it just threw me off. And it's still, I'm still ticked off in regard to that. But now I have to think of, okay, how best for me individual and talking to other persons, how best to get out there and bring it up to people's attention and knowledge that, hey, another election is coming up in November. This is what you, please pay attention to this. Get out and vote, etc., etc.
See, and of those 400 that voted, Miss Sams, 200 of them were Somalis. So
Yeah,
so-
yeah,
You had to go there. You had to go there.
Ain't nothing so.
yeah. Here again, it's like I said in the past, a lot of the immigrant communities that come over, they're still communal, so they know the value. They stay together and they know the power of, and the people that are in the system here. Somehow they don't get in political positions without people already here supporting them and putting them out there. Here again, the Reconstruction thing, until after a while, they are going to fade off the scenes after the system finishes using them also. But I mean, it's just, I'm still agitated. I'm still mad.
Bill, I was being a little facetious there, but is that how it kind of works? Like, within our community, we do not value our vote or get out to vote?
Well, what's happened in, I'd say, the last couple of generations is that there was a sense, particularly obviously in our community, that we'd done so much and gone so far and been through so much and all that we didn't care if it was for the dog catcher. Like, we were going to come out, and we became such a reliable voting bloc that there were lots of people who, built careers on appealing to us, right? I mean, built their careers on getting the black vote. A bunch of people managed to have long, successful careers built around that. And then what started to happen is a combination of the aforementioned demographic shifts combined with a growing sense of apathy in our younger people, right? So the highest percentage in terms of our voting numbers are Black women above the age of 60, right? They are maybe the single most reliable voting bloc in America. It's only one of the most. And as you go further away from them, they become less reliable, right? You can count on them less. So if you are in politics, you are looking at the constituencies that you can count on, right? There's a bunch of people who are in the maybe pile, and you want to get a certain number of people in the maybe pile, but you can't build a career on maybe, no matter what business you're talking about. You can live with yes, you can even live with no, but you die with maybe. So at some point, you have to find the people that definitely 100% vote. And in our community, and it's frankly true in other communities as well, but especially in our community, older is better, right? I've worked on political campaigns. We spent a lot of our time in retirement communities, a lot, right? And, when I was a much younger man, there was all that, oh, this nice young man, a lot of that. And, you would, compliment them, and you would, take their arms and, help them to the elevators, whatever it is, because you knew that impression you made on those, not all women, but mostly women in these communities, you knew that was going to equal votes. Now, as you talk about people 18 to 24 in our community, and once again across the board, those are the iffiest voters in the world. The iffiest voters in the world. It's true about white 18 to 24s, Hispanic, Asian, a little less true about them, but still across the board, they are iffy. If they're not feeling it, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's too wet, name something. If a really good show is on. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons those 18 to 24-year-olds won't show up to vote. I'm not so sure about this candidate. I mean, just there's any reason they don't show up. And so as you go up in age, I mean, it's sort of funny and ironic, but because as was mentioned earlier, all the passion, all the firebrands, the people who want to throw things and fight and whatever, those are your younger people generally. I mean, there's some people who get a little snow on the roof, but still have that fire in the chimney or whatever, in the fireplace. But generally, as you get to a certain point in life, you look at other ways to fight the system as opposed to literally fighting the system. Just because, hey, you don't heal up as fast as you used to. So that's the great irony, right? I mean, that's the thing people criticize about Colin Kaepernick, right? For years, he wasn't even registered to vote. So people said, like, well, wait a second, what's this about? But it's largely a function of age. So despite the fact that you get all of this, like I said, the passion and the commitment to do all these other things, and she said, including get hurt, occasionally even killed. It's easier to sell them on that than for them to wait in their local middle school for, 40 minutes, however long it takes, depending upon how large your precinct area is, to cast a vote. Fascinating.
And he's right, because I went to vote about 7:00. My daughter took me up there, and as I was going in with my walker, 3 Black women were coming out in regards to the Black women vote. I part of my anger hasn't it passed, some of that passed down in regards to the importance of the of what's going on, especially in regards to the high level of interest in changing the police and the judges and stuff. These are the elections where you change the people to get people in that's going to change the system that's so deteriorated, and that you want changes. These are the people. These are the political positions that you vote people in, when you vote people in, that will make the difference and make these political and criminal changes. And so that was part of the frustration that I had. And I even, to me, it said, are you really serious when you're talking about and willing to give up your lives in the street? Are you really serious about what you're saying and stuff? And so that's part of my mixed emotions about it too. But the only way to maybe get the word out and gets people started thinking differently is for me and other people to get out there and say, let them know what's going on. And the politicians, they don't even. In Minnesota, if you live under a bridge, you're homeless and live under a bridge, you can vote if you have someone that's in that precinct and can verify, yes, this person is homeless and under a bridge. You can vote if your birthday turned 18 on the day of the elections. All kinds of ways that you are able to vote. None of the politicians would say that. On even the literature in terms of trying to reach people to get out to vote. If you've been in jail and an ex-felony for all papers, you can vote. None of the politicians, the ones that I listen to, have said anything like that or anything on their literature in regards to you can vote if this is what qualifies you to vote. Because they want to stay in power, they will only speak of the things that they feel that what they hear coming from the public, and here it is, crime is real big.
Brother Williams, I want to direct this to you because you always mention the fact that we are at war, and one of the things that we mentioned the people, the older generation, my generation, that uh, are more likely to vote because of our age or our age group or whatever. But, Brother Williams, do you think that our generation, Miss Simpson, do you think that they really realize that we are at war and that we have to be in a combat mode if we are going to overcome uh, this particular type of political uh, 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 repression?
Well, I would say this. Let me start off by saying, by using the analogy of war, to me, the biggest problem that we have as Black people is that too few of us are able to think past just the grunt mentality of those that are recognizing that we are at war. In other words, we're not in a position to be able to actually see the strategy. We're forced to be tacticians because we are reactionary. Going back to what Dr. Casey was saying earlier, and how in approaching war from a reactionary position, which is what we typically tend to do, even when we recognize we're at war, still does not give you the vantage point of recognizing, number one, why you're at war. Number two, who is your enemy? You know you're at war, you know you're being bombarded, but who is your enemy? How to attack your enemy? How to properly equip yourself with the necessary tools to engage properly with war? Because when you're simply operating as a tactician, then basically whatever you can grab and utilize at that moment in time to get you past that next coping mechanism or the next coping situation, you tend to do. And so even when we approach, most of the time approach war in at that level of recognizing it, we still do so from a coping perspective, which means that we're achieving and learning how to be better at overcoming obstacles. But the problem with overcoming obstacles, as it applies again to the perspective of coping, is that all you're doing is still exercising survival. So therefore, as long as all you looking at as long as you're looking at life and navigating life as obstacles, then what are you doing in terms of removing these obstacles so that the next generation can actually have more of a different type of fight to have, as well as not allowing these obstacles to continually pile up to where you just fighting a constantly inclining war. And so going back to the analogy of war, we need more people that are strategists. And when you talk about being a strategist, you talk about someone that actually is looking at least at a bird's eye view of the battlefield and recognizing different positions of operation and engagement that can be taken so that we can. And so when we're not operating at that capacity to where we're able to recognize that we need to be strategists, tacticians, and conductors. I always throw in conductors because a lot of people don't know about that. You have the strategist, you have your tactician, and then you have to have something in the middle, a conduit in the middle that makes sure that
Yep.
everything can flow. And so looking at it from that level, it's about teaching. It's about, to me, the elders being able to teach the youth how to look at things and what is going on. And it even goes back to what Bill was saying earlier. I think my internet is dropping out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
Back.
now.
Yep, you're back.
Okay. Um, Going back to what Bill was saying earlier about it, a harvest, of being a garden, and recognizing a garden, then we have to know how to harvest the garden, and therefore that means we need to know what to plant. We need to know the seasons in which things need to plant. We need to know what other things to plant in the garden that complement what it is we're gardening and what it is we're taking care of. And when we approach life with that perspective, then we're looking at things from a holistic point of view.
Yeah.
We're looking at things from the point of view that we are recognizing how everything has its role in the overall result and overall operation of where we're headed. So the name of the game, like we started off earlier talking about, is to conquer and divide. That has to do with dividing us physically, dividing us mentally, dividing us psychologically, and dividing us spiritually. The more you can compartmentalize and break us down, the less likely we are to know what the other piece is, yet alone what the other piece is for. You see, so we can't even see all of the pieces on that are a part of the board, yet alone even know what they are for, which means we can't ever develop a strategy so that we can make sure all of the proper pieces are on the chessboard at the same time. So I just really, to me, again, it just goes back to recognizing that we are at war, and as a generation, preparing ourselves strategically, tactfully, and through conduction of the operations of the theater of war.
Yeah. And to add what Mr. Williams is saying, we as a people have to stop doing and saying things that will give our adversaries something to use against us as a people. We have to stop to think about what we may be doing or saying that may give our enemies things to use against us to take us down. And in regards to James, in regards to our generation is getting older and sicker. But even if you're in a nursing home, etc., there are ways for you to vote from your nursing home. But you have to be taught this. People have to know about this, and I always try to put it out there in all the ways that you can vote. But we as a generation, if we don't get it out there to Dr. Casey's generation and other people, I mean, we're slowly fading, and the generations to come in regard to political advantage and strategizing in their arenas, they're going to be losing the battle, or at least a lot of people are going to get wounded or killed in trying to fight the battle.
See, and I think voting is important, but when you are voting for two sides of evil,
There you go.
two sides of manipulation, then it's kind of hard for voting to take us where we really need to be, because the goal is really not for us to accomplish anything or to rise in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The goal that has been set forth that we see is to keep us contained. One does it one way and the other side does it another way, but it's still the same general containment that we are fighting to get away from when we vote. So yeah, voting is important, but when we're voting for the
lesser of two evils.
when it's all evil, I mean, shit, we're not really getting nowhere. I mean, that's the problem.
That's
Part
why
of the strategy, as you're saying, Dr. Casey, in terms of who's out there at that point, you have to stop to think about, the less of two evils that I have to choose from at this point. But and also, in addition to that, I got to think about choosing and encouraging other people to run, to get in there, to get both, get everybody out and get new people in there. So I just can't stop it. I guess my strategy and thing, I just can't. After I make this, hold my nose and make this vote, I gotta get busy getting somebody in there, even if I have to run myself, get other people in there to make this permanent and long-lasting changes.
I definitely agree with you. Bill, your final thoughts for the evening. Thank you for joining us, my man.
Oh, well, always a pleasure. This is one of my favorite places to be. This is a very busy time of year for me. As some of you know, I work in education, and one of the things it is for us is scholarship committee season, and so we have a lot of scholarship applications to plow through and a bunch of other stuff. So it's good to come up for air every now and again. But on this day, this is the 15th, middle of the month, I guess Ides of August. I guess there's been a few things that always stick with me about this day, about these days, because on the 15th of August, as I think about sort of where we are and what we've been through as a people and things that happened, amongst other things, Liberia, right? A place that we don't talk about very much in American history for a variety of reasons, was founded on this day in 1824. So a group of freed slaves, including one of George Washington's former slaves who had escaped, got to Canada, eventually from there to England, and from England to Liberia. Was one of the founding, I don't know what the term is, founders, I guess, one of the founders of the nation of Liberia. Liberia, like any other country that was literally born from the detritus and the byproducts of the transatlantic slave trade, has been hit with every kind of crisis one can imagine, right? Various humanitarian crises, coups, disease, famine, name something, right? I mean, all the things that, name all the horsemen, they've all ridden through Liberia at one point or another. And so it's literally a nation of former slaves, right? And sort of like Haiti, another nation of former slaves that has, the Western world has, people say turn their back on. It's like, no. They haven't turned their back on them. Because you can't kick somebody if you have your back to them. So no, they didn't turn their back on Haiti. They've been facing Haiti the whole time, kicking, punching, stabbing, slapping. But Liberia still stands, still survives, bloodied and unbowed, I guess you could say. And my hope is that at some point, and I'm not truly a quote unquote Pan-Africanist, I guess, though I believe that we would benefit as a nation here, a nation within a nation, if we had stronger connections to Africa. And I believe that Liberia is, if nothing else, an almost obvious natural ally, or should be an almost an obvious natural ally to us, because we are, many of us, literally connected as in genetically to Liberia. And yet, for some reason, Black Americans have, to my knowledge, shown scant interest in Liberia, even during the sort of briefly flourishing of people getting interested back in Africa again in the late 1960s to mid 70s. They were always talking about Kwame Nkrumah, and they were talking about Nigeria, and they were talking about, and for some reason, Liberia, of all places, never came off anybody's, even Egypt, right? But nobody wants to talk about Liberia. My hope is that at some point we will reconnect to this place that is, like I said, so clearly already connected to us. That's my final thought.
Ms. Sims.
Yes. My thought is that I have to remind myself and others that there are at least two sides to everything in life. And as we go through, as Black folk, as we go through a lot of the negative things, the negative people, the negative actions that are going on around us, locally and nationally, don't forget there are other sides, there are other people that are out there trying to do positive things and go forward and working hard and actually trying to make the changes in various things that will uplift us as a people and to help with our existence. Sometimes we may have to go that extra step to find them where they, and seek them out. But they are out there, and I encourage. I have to, like I said, I have to remind myself and other people that this is one of the things we have to do to continue, literally, our existence here.
Dr. Casey.
So, in my closing, I would like to first wish Nipsey Hussle happy birthday and congratulate his soul on his walk, a famed star. In general, we just got to do better about educating ourselves and moving forward with the education that we obtain. We can talk all day until we blue in the face and then get our face back right and then talk again. But until we learn more so that we can make good steps forward, then we'll always be on this hamster wheel of what can we do? What can we do? The same conversation over and over and over again, versus what's being done. It's cool to post on social media. It's cool to make all these, sayings and all of that. But what are we doing that can actually impact the next generation to go further? What are we doing that can impact our own generation to go further? Despite our age, despite our differences, despite our preferences around anything, it's about making steps that will actually take us forward, learning strategy. But in order to know strategy, you got to know something to plan around. And largely, we've been uneducated or miseducated, educated on the things and the ways that is complementary to the things that are already in place versus removing not kind of removing. You don't have to unlearn everything, but you need to put things in their proper place. And a lot of our challenges is being able to shake off the bones of what we've been given, because they only give us the scraps. They give us just enough to keep us, going just a little bit further, versus giving us the real meat of what we need to learn. So it's about taking the initiative to learn the things that's really going to give us a solid foundation. Because if we're waiting for them to teach us something that's going to overthrow what they got going on, we'll be waiting forever. If we're waiting
Yeah.
for them to do anything that's going to empower us to really know who we are, know what belongs to us, and to move in a way that's going to really make us, level up, we're not going to get that, because they're not going to do that. Like I said earlier, before everybody else came on, if we really knew who we were, they would not be in power, which is why we can never, based on the strategy that's being used against us and the psychological warfare and the mental manipulation, they will never put us in a position to be better than them. It's like your boss is never going to pay you enough to be his neighbor, technically,
Yeah.
unless you can do something great for him being his neighbor, unless he can use you as a neighbor. He's not going to do that. And it's the same way with the knowledge of ourselves, knowledge of the land over the corporation of the United States, as well as how to build up our foundation to really stand and structure the leverage that we're getting now. Hopefully, it doesn't get burned down. Hopefully, it's not sabotaged in some type of way to take away the things that we're doing now. But we have to even plan for that. If something goes wrong, then what? And not in a way to where, oh shit, something happened. Now we got it. No, we have to plan ahead. The only way we will get ahead is if we plan ahead.
Brother Williams, take us home.
All right. I just want to end that on the recognition of what I refer to as collective trauma. As a people, that is what we're dealing with, collective trauma. In the same way, individual traumas stunt the growth of a person and cause them to, develop develop with a crutch or develop with a dysfunction that they never go back and address. As a people, if we continue to not face our traumas collectively, then we will have the same problem, which leads right into why it is harder for us to be able to overcome obstacles and to remove obstacles from our life and to be visionary enough to have solutions and be solution based as a people, because we're still engaged in operating with collective traumas instead of addressing those collective traumas, which feeds right into why we find ourselves being as a people the world's largest consumer per capita, based upon luxury, lust, and luster. So we tend to chase after things based upon our desires, whereas we need to be able to reshape our appetite so that we actually have the ability to deal with and address accountability. Right now, our livelihoods are based upon desires. Our livelihoods are based upon what we can consume, which basically just feeds into our dysfunctionality because have not addressed our collective trauma, which is why we find ourselves in a situation to where we are have a renter's mentality as opposed to a owner's mentality. So therefore, we don't care about land. We don't care about politics from the standpoint of de-governing because we don't understand self-governance. Self-governance feeds right into collective governance. So as a people, when you don't know yourself, you and not knowing yourself and not knowing your path and not knowing how that can connect you to the next person, which connects you to the next person, that goes back to that garden. So therefore, we don't know our place and we don't know how we should operate from a holistic perspective as a people. And therefore, we continue to operate as crabs in a barrel and we keep operating from a position of this collective trauma. So we have to be willing to rise up above our victimization. We have to be willing to recognize that at this point, we can't continue to blame, should I say, the system or the white man, although we know at the root of things, power is going to maintain its grip and is going to maintain its position. So, therefore, if you want things to change, you have to be that change. You have to be willing to make that sacrifice as an individual, as a family, and as a collective. But that goes back to purpose and the worth of accountability in wanting and having the appetite to do your part into making yourself a better human being for the sake of the future generations. So if we took ownership of this land, if we took ownership of what's going on with the world, we would care about climate change. We would care about the position that the planet is going, and therefore see it to be our duty as Africans, our duty as whatever Native Americans or native to this planet, whatever we want to call it, to actually put things in the right perspective and stop the destruction, stop those that are destroying the planet. So we owe it to the world, we owe it to the planet, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to being the first in society to be able to control society. So to me, it's about that. It's about recognizing that we are at war and we must fight the fight and we must fight the fight the correct way. Be students of that and move forward on that.
Learn from your mistakes instead of committing more. I'd like to thank everyone for their.
You didn't say anything, James. You didn't say
I,
anything.
I, I, I
You
always have
always try to get away.
something. Well, okay, then let's talk about the right to vote.
You done
Because
got us started again.
yeah, well, see, one thing I like about Miss Sanders, she might come in late, but she will keep me on my toes, so that's all right. You know. But no, let's talk about the right to vote, and being an ex felon, there, I've said many times, one of the things that I missed most was the fact when I had to wait that 7 years to vote, and then I had to pay to get that right back again. So when you think about your right to vote, a lot of people think that, well, my vote is just one and it doesn't count. But think of your vote in terms of a collective and how you have to put forth an effort in order for your collective to thrive. Just as we were talking about that garden earlier, we have to look upon our vote as well as our right to the quality of life in the same manner. Not something that we take for granted, but something that we have to work on constantly and make sure that we cultivate and make sure that our crop thrives. So, once again, I thank everyone for coming on this evening. I look forward to talking to you again next Monday and have a great week.
All power to people.
Peace and love till the next time.
All right, Miss Sanders. You have a good night there, Dr. Casey.
I'll try. I'm going to get on these ribs.
And don't forget, I haven't forgot about that video.
Which one?
The one, the one that they took your phone.
Oh.
I got a good memory. I might be old, but I got a good memory.
All right. Talk to you next time.
All right. You have a good one. Talk to you later. Hey, Bill, I see you still on that fantasy thing. Did you sign up yet?
Oh, maybe. No, I have to check. Probably not. I was dealing with some other league business in other leagues, but yeah, I'll get on that. It's in my email. I'll look for it.
All right. Talk to you next week, man.
I will see you in a few days, actually, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm doing a special on Wednesday if you want to come in. But since I always have an all black show on Monday, I decided I'd do an alternative show Wednesday with some of the people that I had when I originally started. Some veterans, lady that has a couple of mixed kids and stuff like that. So.
Oh, I've met